Hi everyone. In this video, I'd like to speak about what medical writers need to consider with respect to authorship in a medical research paper. So I'd like to talk about the recommendations from the International Committee for Medical Journal Editors and speak about how these recommendations in turn are incorporated in the guidelines from good publication practice. So I'll provide an overview of the four considerations regarding authorship specified by the ICMJE when developing a medical research paper. So let's dive in. Number one, who is an author? Well, the ICMJE recommends that authorship be based on the following four criteria. So number one is that an author makes substantial contributions to the conception or design of the work or the acquisition, analysis, or interpretation of data for the work. And number two, drafting the work or reviewing it critically for important intellectual content. And three, final approval of the version to be published. And number four, agreement to be accountable for all aspects of the work in ensuring that the questions related to the accuracy or integrity of any part of the work are appropriately investigated and resolved. So let's say hypothetically, say one author was asked a question about the study design or statistical analysis, and say the information to answer this was not in the published paper. If the questioned author is not the corresponding author, they should be willing to follow up with whomever in the author group is able to address the question and provide an answer. Because in addition for being accountable for the parts of the work done, an author should be able to identify which their co-authors is responsible for a specific part of the work. So these criteria should not be used to exclude colleagues from authorship if they're already qualify as an author based on criterion number one. So if someone meets the first criterion, they should be given the chance to contribute to the review, drafting, and final approval of the manuscript, thereby fulfilling criterions 2 and 3. So it's the responsibility of the authors, not the journal, to ensure that everyone listed as an author meets all four criteria. Journal editors are not responsible for deciding who qualifies for authorship or resolving disputes over authorship. If there is an agreement about who should be credited, the matter should be referred to the institution where the work was conducted, rather than to the journal editor. So all those designated as authors must meet all four criteria for authorship, and all those who meet the four criteria should be identified as authors. Those who do not meet all four criteria should be acknowledged. So let's talk a little bit about non-author contributors. So contributors who meet fewer than four of the above criteria for authorship should not be listed as authors, but they should be acknowledged. So examples of activity that alone, without other contributions that do not qualify as a contributor for authorship are, for example, the acquisition of funding, general supervision of a research group, or general administrative support and writing assistance, technical editing, language editing, and proofreading. Being mentioned in the acknowledgement section may imply endorsement by acknowledged individuals of a study's data and conclusions. So it's good practice to seek permission for the individuals that are mentioned in the acknowledgements sections. In fact, some journals may require that the corresponding author obtain written permission to be acknowledged from all acknowledged individuals. Top shelf journals like the Lancet definitely require this. So let's talk a little bit about the author order. So the criteria used to determine the the order of the authors in the byline or the author list may vary, but ultimately order of the authors in this list should be collectively agreed upon by the author group and not by the journal editors. So the first author, again, these are not rules that apply in any kind of shape or form to all manuscripts, but the first author can be the person who's done the most hands-on work in executing the clinical trial or the analysis, and they may include, they may have designed a study protocol, coordinated trial operations, led the acquisition of data and the analysis. They may have been involved with writing early drafts, and this individual may be a KOL, a key opinion leader. It's also fine to have co-authors. You may have two or three. Two is pretty standard, but it's not this situation is not unheard of. The middle authors, then, they may be individuals who had specific roles during the trial. So these could be site investigators, biostatisticians, data managers, some sort of subspecialty experts, such as those involved in pharmacokinetic or pharmacodynamic analyses, regulatory coordinators. The order of the middle authors may reflect the extent of their contribution in different multi-center trials, but they can also be listed alphabetically as well. The last author is sometimes the senior investigator for the trial or analysis. They may be responsible for the conceptualization of the study, overseeing the entire trial. They may also be a key opinion leader. They can be the corresponding author, but not always. So let's talk a little bit about the role of the corresponding author. So this individual is the main point of contact between the journal and the research team during the submission, peer review, and publication stages. This individual is generally responsible for ensuring that all necessary administrative requirements, such as authorship details, ethics approvals, clinical trial registrations, and disclosures, are all properly completed. Some of these tasks can be assigned to their co-authors, though. The corresponding author should be available to promptly address any editorial queries throughout the submission and review process, and should remain accessible after publication to respond to critiques or provide additional information if requested. While the corresponding author handles the communications with the journal, the ICMJE advises that editors share correspondence with all authors. So it won't be just a corresponding author, generally, who receives all correspondence from the journal. So next, let's talk a little bit about changing or adding authors. So if authors request removal or addition, if authors request removal or addition of an author after a manuscript submission or publication, well, then the journal editors may often seek an explanation and a signed statement of agreement for such a requested change from all listed authors and from the author that is to be removed or added. These situations can be nuanced, and a journal may have additional requests on a case-by-case basis, but if an author is added, the lead and or corresponding author must ensure that they fulfill all authorship criteria. Medical writers can aid this by ensuring a record of the author's approval for the final draft. It's best practice to ensure there is a record of all other authors approving the inclusion of new author. So let's talk a little bit about author groups. So when a large multi-author group has conducted the work, the group should ideally decide who will be an author before the work is started and confirm who is the author before submitting the manuscript before publication. So group authorship is standard practice in large multi-center studies or major clinical trials. So it's common to attribute authorship to a research consortium, study group, or collaborative network, rather than listing dozens or sometimes hundreds of individual names. The individual names of group members can be listed in a supplementary file or sometimes an acknowledgement section. So let's just have a quick look at an example from this. Okay, so let's have a quick look at this example of group authorship, and there's also a nice example of an author list. So we have here all the authors and footnotes indication or numbers indicating their different affiliations. We notice that respect to the author order, um, we note that we can see here that authors are listed alphabetically. There is two co-authors, or co-lead authors as indicated by this footnote symbol here, and we can see here there is some group authorship on behalf of the Sympathy Consortium, and appropriately there's a footnote to indicate that membership of the Sympathy Consortium is provided in the acknowledgement section. Let's just have a quick look at that. Okay, we can see here we'd like to thank the following members of the Sympathy Consortium for their contributions. All these different members are listed here, but appropriately, they've also indicated what was the role of each author in the consortium, so in this group. So this is a really nice example of the appropriate use and disclosure of an author group. Okay, let's talk a little bit about artificial intelligence as an author. An AI tool such as the large language model cannot be included as an author. Why? Well, because AI cannot fulfill criterion number 4 of authorship. It cannot be accountable for all aspects of the work and cannot ensure answers related to the work's accuracy or integrity are appropriately investigated and resolved. This must be done by a human. So use of AI and how it's used to develop the paper should always be disclosed. And the place to do this is in the acknowledgement section. Written permission to be included in the acknowledgement section is only required for humans. For example, you don't need to get permission from ChatGPT to mention it in the acknowledgements. So to summarize, in this video we outlined what the 4 different criteria for authorship are per the ICMJE guidelines. We spoke a little bit about non-author contributors and how they should be disclosed in acknowledgement section. We touched on how one could approach determining the author order. We spoke about group authorship and touched on disclosing AI as an author. If you like this video, do please like and comment, and if you'd like to hear anything else about authorship, do please let me know. Thanks.